Hey, good morning, guys. This is Coach Brian with your 4-2 notes. Going to try to make this real quick. These are pretty short notes. They are all about translations. And so in day 1 of Unit 4, we specifically talked about isometry. All right, isometry is a transformation that doesn't change the size or shape. So you can rotate things, you can translate, which is like sliding them around, side to side, up, down, all that stuff, or you can reflect them. But the biggest thing is with isometry is that the size and shape don't change. Size and shape do not change. So as we're looking at both of these examples here, it looks like for A and for B that these shapes have stayed exactly the same. So we're good to claim that both of these are isometry because the size and the shape hasn't changed. But then you'd ask yourself, okay, then what did happen? And so if we look at this first one, if we were to kind of draw an imaginary axis right here, it looks like it's been reflected across some axis, okay? It's been reflected. And then for our second one, they're in the exact same orientation, like the corresponding sides are all still in the same location. So all it looks like that's happened to this one is that it's been maybe slid down and over, some kind of combination of down and to the right. And we would call that a translation. Okay, we would call that a translation. And so what is a translation? That's what we're defining today. It's what today's entire lesson is about. A transformation shifts a figure in one or more directions. Shifts a figure in one or more directions. And so while we're shifting these figures around, we have a pre-image, and that's our original image. All right, that's our pre-image. So up here, it's the ones that I'm shading red right now. Those are the pre-image, and then the darker shaded ones are our images, and that's our new image after you've applied any changes that you're making. So moving on now, we've got some examples here, and for question number 1, it says, given the transformation, T equals, or T is located at points X and Y, and you're transforming it to +5, -2, we got to figure out what those mean. And so the first thing I really want to point out to you, though, is this little symbol right here. It's referred to as a prime a lot. So we have T and we have T prime. And, that letter can be anything. It doesn't have to be a T, but you will see that little apostrophe there a lot. And what that means is that is our image, which we just set up above. It's our new image. And then our T, without any symbols or anything attached to it, that's our original image. All right, that's our OG image right there. All right, so think about what this is saying. If I have my X value, all right, when I'm looking at a coordinate plane, x's run left to right and they run negative to positive. And so if I'm adding 5 to every x value, it's going to be moving 5 units to the right. It's going to be moving 5 units to the right from that transformation. And then also think about my y. My y is vertical. Okay, so if I'm taking everything on an up and down scale and moving it down 2, that's how my shape or my point or any of those things that I'm shifting, they're going to all move down 2. For the next little part of our practice, it says to use the transformation rules we just learned to find the image or the pre-image. How do you know which one you're finding? Well, if you look, this R has nothing attached to it. And that means it's our pre-image, our original. And when it says apply these transformation rules, we're applying these rules from part 1, question number 1. So that means for our X value, we're going to add 5 to it. And for our y value, we're going to take 2 away from it. And so this is just a single point R, and it was located over at -8, 0. So it was on the x-axis, 8 units to the left. But after we apply these transformations, it's going to now be at -3, -2. It's been moved to the right 5 and down 2. Now, where this can get a little more confusing is where you have the image or the new image, the post image, when we have the little apostrophe right there. So this has already had the transformation applied. So for this one, we're just going to be kind of working backwards. We're going to say if we ended up at -5 and we got there by adding 5, now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to take away 5. We're going to do the opposite of what we originally did. And if we ended up at -6 and we got there by subtracting 2, we're going to add 2. And so this point that ended up at -5, -6 started at -10, -4. That's where it started. And it would probably help if you put the correct notation in front. So let's do this last one together real quick. Let's get a new color pen here. All right, this is a Z prime, which means it's an after image, a post image, an image, however you want to think about it. It's the result of applying the transformation. So just like we did over here, we're going to do the opposite operations. Instead of adding 5, we're going to take away 5. Instead of subtracting 2, we're going to add 2. And so this image, Z, the pre-image, began at 4, 6. Began at 4, 6. Excuse me. All right, now when we're given 2 points and we're given their coordinates, you can also figure out kind of like where they started and where they came from and figure out the rules for yourself. So if my A was at 2, 4 and my A prime is at 3, 1, you would ask yourself, how did I get there? If I went from 2 to 3 as an X value, how did I get there? Well, I would apply X plus 1. And that would be to the right, just in case you were wondering. And then how did I get from 4 to 1? Well, you would go y minus 3, and that would be down. And so you can look at 2 points and compare them and figure out, between the x's, what change happened. Between the y's, what change happened. Now, for this next section, we're finding images. Image, image, pre-image. Image, image, and pre-image. Now, it says find the rule and use it to find the following. So that means, just like we did in part 1, we're using the x plus 1 and the y minus 3 for all of these. So I'm just going to work one of these for you because I want to leave some for you to do. But for this first one, if I have 3 and I'm adding 1 to my x, and then I have 1 and I'm taking away 3 from my y's, all right, these are where my rules are coming from. That means my image, my new image, is going to be at 4, -2. 4, -2. I'll let you do J, you're finding the image, and then for G, you're finding the pre-image, because you see it's an image. All right, last question for part number 3. We are determining the translation rule, and then we're going to draw the 2 triangles and shade the image. So first, we have point D. Never fails for a bell to ring while recording. Sorry about that. All right, so we went from D to D prime, and it says right here that D prime is 0, -2. So we went, I'm just going to write over here to the side. We went from -3, -1 to 0, 2. And I'm going to go ahead and plot that point too. It's at 0, -2, which means it's on my y-axis. Now we have E. E is 5, -2. E is at 5, -2. And it's been moved to 8, -3. So you might already be noticing some consistency between what's happening here. F is at -1, -4, and moves to 2, -5. And so if you haven't figured it out yet, all of my x's are changing by a consistent amount. Look, I went from -3 to 0. That's an addition of 3. I went from 5 to 8. That's an addition of 3. I went from -1 to 2. That's an addition of 3. So I'm definitely adding 3 to all of my x's. And then looking over at my y's, I go from -1, I get more negative by 1. I go from -2 to -3. I got more negative by 1. I go from -4 to -5. So all my y's, I'm actually taking one more away from them. And now again, I can go over here. I can plot these points. I've got that one. I can go over to 8, -1, 2, 3. Got that one. And I can go over to 2, -5. And then I would want to connect these lines. Do the best I can on my iPad here. Connect these lines and shade the image. So let's get a different color to shade in our image here. And that is our image. All right, we have our image and our pre-image, our original and our new. And so just one last thing, you could actually label this triangle too, D prime, F prime, E prime, just to show the corresponding points and angles. That'll be really helpful too as you move forward and start doing more complex transformations. But hopefully this makes sense to you, and through practice and your other activities, you really learn